in the last few years. Now they're going to have all of Universal's content, both live action and animated. Now, Amazon Prime's not going to get the live action stuff anymore. It's all going to go to Netflix, I think, starting next year. But the animated stuff that's been on Netflix has been doing very well. The How to Train Your Dragon animated series, the Jurassic Park cartoons, they've become more and more popular with kids. Netflix bringing in Sesame Street is going to ensure or help to ensure that a broader range of the audience spends more and more time on Netflix. Renegade Online. What Elmo, Netflix, and HBO Max tell us about the state of streaming. This is from the Los Angeles Times, and this goes into the deal that, talks about some of the deal here. This kind of stuff has to happen, right? And of course, there's already calls that, hey, look, there you go. Sesame Street is it's still going to be airing on PBS, but there's been lots of calls for defunding PBS. Now, a lot of people out there, they misconstrue the fact that Sesame Street, while it's been distributed on PBS, it's its own separate company. That's not part of PBS. They just simply broadcast OTA over the air there as a linear delivery system. Netflix is now in line to get streaming rights to the new episodes, whatever the next season of Sesame Street is, starting later this year, and a catalog to begin with of 90 existing episodes. Now, it's not a lot of episodes when you consider that Sesame Street's been around for damn near 50 years or thereabout. Which episodes they're going to get, I have no idea. Probably a catalog of the more recent episodes, the ones which a lot of people would complain, had already kind of gone woke. I don't know. I haven't watched Sesame Street, go figure, in a long frickin' time. My kids didn't even really watch Sesame Street growing up because by that point, you weren't really watching over-the-air broadcast or stuff like this. Most of what they had available was things like Little Einstein or Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and all this. And I'm going back, 15 years at this point when the kids were a lot younger. And of course, in a time before Disney really went full tard. Right? When it came to all the woke stuff that they shoved in kids' programming that we can't stand now. Netflix's recent deal, says the LA Times, to stream the upcoming season of Sesame Street is, on its own, a major step in the entertainment giant's effort to become a go-to destination for preschooler programming. Now, that's exactly what I was talking about when I posted this on X. And that's exactly what Netflix is going here. We covered the recent Netflix earnings call just about a month ago now, I believe. And Ted Sarandos and the boys over there made no bones about the fact that their next big push was going to be to create a more well-rounded and even more robust offering for children's programming on Netflix. You notice the deals they've struck, big money deals with Universal in the last few years. Now they're going to have all of Universal's content, both live action and animated. Now, Amazon Prime's not going to get the live action stuff anymore. It's all going to go to Netflix, I think, starting next year. But the animated stuff that's been on Netflix has been doing very well. The How to Train Your Dragon animated series, the Jurassic Park cartoons. Renegade Jr.'s watch these things. He enjoys it. They've become more and more popular with kids. Netflix bringing in Sesame Street is going to ensure or help to ensure that a broader range of the audience spends more and more time on Netflix, right? Netflix doesn't really care about growing subscribership so much. I mean, it's still important. They still want to do it. They're not going to eschew the opportunity to enhance or increase the numbers of members that they serve, currently at around 300 million. And members is a term that Netflix uses that's different than subscribers, that what everybody else uses. They call them our members, which I kind of like. But the thing is that Netflix does not care if they go from 305 million to 320 million or 310 million or whatever. What Netflix is really focused on right now is getting those 300 million people that have Netflix to spend more time on Netflix than they are now. Now, only YouTube surpasses Netflix in terms of streaming consumption out there. But of course, YouTube is a very different animal. This is YouTube. It's us. It's people doing podcasts, people dropping 30-minute videos on Japanese sword making or something. And I know, where did you pull that out of? Because I watch those kind of videos. I love watching Japanese sword making. It's stuff like that, right? And there's a whole variety of things on YouTube, but it's not scripted content by and large. But when it comes to scripted content, Netflix obviously is king. So Netflix wants to increase the amount of time that people spend there. Now, one of the ways to do that is to keep pumping out more original content for the same audience over and over again, or to enhance the subscriptions that you already have, the households you already have, and afford people like me, or really more or less people that, like I was maybe 10 years ago, where all three of my children were much younger. 10 years ago, where my oldest child was 9 and my youngest would have been 4. Renegade Jr. would have been roughly 4. Because you want those kids to spend more time on Netflix now instead of going over to Disney Plus. So make no mistake, Netflix going in and committing to greatly enhancing the amount of children's content that they're going to have available to Netflix Kids, which is what they call the junior login version of Netflix. Like, I think I still have Netflix Kids when I log into Netflix because of, they're older now, but we had a Netflix Kids there for a while. They want to take the market share. And there's only one competitor that Netflix is going to go after to take more market share from, really, and that's Disney when it comes to streaming on Disney Plus. Because Disney right now is so dependent on Bluey, right? What is it, 50, some absolutely obscene number, like almost 50 billion minutes watched or something like that on Disney Plus in 2023 for Bluey, or whatever it was. It's about 1 billion minutes a week that get consumed for Bluey on Disney Plus. There's nothing else on Disney Plus that does that. Not even close. There is no close second on Disney Plus that does that anywhere. But that's all they've got. What Netflix is trying to do is create a massive library of desirable content on there to go head to head. Now, how successful they're going to be is going to take time, but that's kind of what this is talking about here. So getting back to the article, now part of this, of course, was the fact that Warner Brothers was giving this up, which, again, I could also understand. Warner Brothers was not seeing, apparently, the kind of return on investment for Sesame Street for what they were paying to license it onto Max or through the Warner Brothers system. So you're probably thinking, okay, but Valiant, well then if it didn't work for Warner Brothers, why would Netflix want this if nobody's streaming it? Well, the problem is that Sesame Street's still a very desirable property, but Max is probably not the best vehicle to deliver it, because regardless of how they tried to kind of rebrand it. Remember HBO Max? Then they said, let's get rid of HBO because people think it's really only for adults. There's no children's content on there. Now they're going back to HBO Max because they figured out getting rid of HBO was eliminating the most valuable piece of the brand, the name HBO that everybody has known for 40 years. The point is, I think Sesame Street didn't do well there because people aren't sending the kids in to go watch Sesame Street on HBO. That doesn't click with parents in their brains, and I don't blame them, right? But what didn't work for Warner Brothers might work spectacularly well for Netflix. That also has a much larger distribution system, obviously, when it comes to streaming. So you've got 120 million or so subscribers for HBO and Max around the globe, I believe, 180 million Disney Plus and Hulu, and then 300 million, the big dog in the room, for Netflix. So I think this is you're going to go from a realm of 120 million subscribers to 300 million, assuming that Netflix is going to be able to distribute this in at least some international markets as well. So, and again, there's more kids watch Netflix, right? There's a lot more kids that'll go on Netflix, or parents that will let their kids go on Netflix onto the children's profile tab because there's a ton of kids' cartoons and stuff on there. They get something like Sesame Street and they keep adding to that young children's repertoire. Imagine by the time the kid is 10 or 11 and they're not watching Sesame Street anymore, they've already been introduced to other content on Netflix. This is how every good business would want to run, is to make sure that you keep your audience engaged and you give your audience good programming that they really want to watch. So, but this is just showing that It's a different era out there, and how aggressive streaming is going to get with trying to pick up a lot of these coveted properties, right? And how much things have changed over the years of where Sesame Street has gone. And they talk about David Zaslav. They talk about he stripped HBO from the streamer's name. I thought that was certainly probably one of maybe the only really glaring bad choice that David Zaslav, in my opinion, has made. It's the only one I can really think of right now that jumps out at me as being a major whoopsadoo. And I know there's some people out there, oh, but he dumped Batgirl. Oh, and then he dumped the Looney Tunes cartoon movie. Okay, that's small potatoes things compared to this, right? And those weren't mistakes. Those were financial necessity for one reason or another, right? He's got to make the hard choices, which ties into another story that we'll get to in just a moment. But yeah, I thought removing the HBO name, I get where David was going, and we talked about it a minute ago. He was trying to, he thought by removing the HBO name that it would rebrand it to where parents would be more willing to have their kids be able to get into even a kid's profile of Max, because they do have a lot of good quality cartoons and content in there. Yes, don't please tell me about Thelma and all that kind of stuff was greenlit before Zaslav got there. But I'm talking about the classic stuff, right? They have so much great classic stuff. But quite honestly, I think David Zaslav is figuring out, or he has been for a while because they've been talking about this, is that a lot of that classic content, right? I think it's like some of the Hanna-Barbera stuff and all that kind of thing. A lot of that great classic Warner Brothers cartoon library is probably going to be better served either on a separate service like a free streaming service. Of course, Warner Brothers owns one of those already, or probably more likely being licensed out to a Netflix, because they have the audience already built in that is probably going to take Warner Brothers a great deal of time and money to even try to acquire, and may not be successful at it. This is cash now, right? And that's probably what they're looking at, I would surmise. And again, they go into basically, this article talks about everything that we kind of just did. I don't want to go through this whole thing, but to say that the big thing here is this move with Sesame Street, I think will go down as kind of one of the hallmark moments in the history of streaming here, because I imagine once Sesame Street gets over there to Netflix, that it's probably unlikely to ever leave, because Netflix probably won't ever let it go. They will continue to pay, because I think they're going to get a whole lot of mileage out of it. And do not at all be surprised within the next 5 years if we see substantially more of the back catalog of Sesame Street, if not potentially all of it, every single thing available on Netflix. I think that's very, very possible. They need something like Sesame Street with 100+ episodes of routinely and repeatedly bingeable content to try to start going head to head with, like I said, with what Disney Plus has with Bluey. Now, Bluey, probably from the standpoint of what's coming out today, is probably a much higher quality show for kids, namely because the Walt Disney Company doesn't make it. I've never heard anybody tell me that Bluey was woke, or that was, teaching kids things that most parents wouldn't want to have. Sesame Street, again, I haven't watched it, but I've heard people tell me that Sesame Street had gone woke. Now, I don't know what that means, because that word woke probably has a different definition to different people out there. So I'm just saying what I heard. It's anecdotal. Don't know if it's true or not. So don't shoot the messenger for that. But again, I think over time, this could be a really good thing for Netflix. So we'll have to see. Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.